In this video, what we're going to be doing is creating an onboarding automation that starts with a fan basis payment trigger. So when someone pays on fan basis, that's what starts the automation. And then it's going to send an outbound webhook to n8n to fire off the rest of the automation. What we want to do, we're actually not going to do the frame.io part just because I know that was giving me some issues before. You can do it. It's not super difficult. You use it in HTTP request for that, but I'm not going to go over that within this video. But we are going to go over how to integrate that with ClickUp, which is a CRM project management software, how to create a new list in ClickUp, and then how to create tasks within a list for everything that you need to do for the onboarding. So that's going to be the general overview synopsis of what this automation does. So this allows you to not have to spend all this time creating tasks, creating checklists, and missing things that are super important when onboarding clients, because it's all right in an automation. And as soon as they pay on fan basis, you can connect this to Stripe. Stripe's actually even easier than fan basis to connect. I just use fan basis, which is why we'll connect it that way. But you can connect it to other CRMs. Again, I use ClickUp. That's probably what most people would use, so I'm going to do it in ClickUp, but you can connect this to pretty much anything, and the principles are generally the same. So the first thing you're going to want to build is going to be an automation in fan basis. It's going to be in Zapier. So if you're in fan basis, go to the left tabs here, and you'll have a Zapier option there. And then you're going to trigger it from a new sale, and then you're going to want to come from a webhook here. For the webhook URL, you're going to have to go to n8n and create a new webhook. It's going to be a post request. And let's just call it FB for fan basis payment. And then we're going to copy that test URL. And then that is what's going to go into your fan basis URL. The payload type is going to be JSON. And then for the data, you're just going to want to add these fields. So you can add more than this, but bare minimum, you want to collect the email, their name, phone, and what product they bought. So probably going to want to collect like payment amount as well, but that's enough for what we're doing. For the purpose of this automation, I'm just going to toss some test data in there and pin that. After the webhook, the next thing that we're going to want to do is add a ClickUp node to get many lists in ClickUp. Actually, we're going to want to get many tasks in ClickUp. So we're going to get many tasks, and you're going to select your team name. You will have to connect a ClickUp credential. Super easy to go in and do that. But for the team name, just select your team name. Space name, I have a space specifically for client CRM. So it's within the front office and active client CRM. And you're going to want to execute that step just to pull all the clients that you have active. And then after this, we're going to want to add a code node in JavaScript. And the code that you're going to want to paste this right here, I'll pull that up. So that's the code that you're going to want to paste in there. All of the JSON templates for this automation and all the other ones I build on the YouTube are free in the school community. First link in the description if you don't feel like copying and pasting this code or retyping it. What this is going to do is just filter this huge payload of data that we got from ClickUp and narrow it down to just have a couple lines. So let's go. We're going to change this to get current clients. And now this code node should work. So you can see now it is just going to return a much simpler payload, and it's going to tell us whether the client already exists in our CRM or not. So if client exists is equal to true, we're going to want to pass it down one branch. And if it's equal to false, meaning they don't exist, we're going to pass it down our onboarding automation. So if it equals true, what we're going to do is just do an HTTP request to send a message in ClickUp. So you're going to grab an HTTP request node that I've written before. And what we're going to do is just, you would swap the channel ID, but that's not super important. So not going to spend a lot of time on that. On the false branch, this is where they're going to go if they don't already exist in our CRM. So anytime somebody pays you, it's going to check to see if they already exist, meaning it's a recurring client. If they don't already exist is where we're going to want to send them through an onboarding automation. So we're going to go to ClickUp and we're going to go to create a task, because what we're going to do, we have our tasks essentially set up as accounts. So we're going to want to create a task in our front office, folderless list, active client CRM. And the name of this task is just going to be client first name, space, client last name, and then that's all we need, honestly, for the active client. So this is going to be create client in CRM. So that's all you need there. And then you're going to want to create a list as well. So let's go to ClickUp and create a list. And this list is going to be in my team. And then we're going to do it in onboarding folderless list, and we're going to call it the test data name. So we're going to go back to the webhook, and we're going to go first name, space last name, and then first name space last name space onboarding. So that's going to create an onboarding list. And then within that list, we're going to create a few tasks. So I'll show you some example tasks of what you may have to do. Say you're running ads for them, right? So we're going to create a task, and then I'm just going to duplicate it for all the different things we'll have to do. So it's going to be within onboarding, folderless list. For the list name, we're going to do it as an expression, and we're actually going to map it from here. So we are going to have to go execute these prior steps. So create client and CRM, create onboarding list. Okay, so we can see code in JavaScript is unavailable. So let's make sure that okay. So I may have mapped this from, okay, so n8n can't figure out a matching item. So what we're going to want to do is go from the client name now, because we do have the client name since we just did it in ClickUp. We're going to want to go create, where's client name? Client name should be somewhere in here. Maybe it's in the if node. We want to do it there. That's fine. Let's just do first name, last name from the if node. For some reason, it wasn't referencing the code node properly, even though I wasn't pulling the data from the code node, but this should work. So now what it's going to do is just create that onboarding list that we were doing. And now in order to create a task, we need to create it within a list just because of the hierarchy of ClickUp. So I'm going to pull it up so that you have a little more context. But I have a space for onboarding, and then I have a list for John Smith, who's the test data. We created that within onboarding. So first we looked at, I'm not going to go to my CRM just because I don't want to show all the client data, but I have a CRM right here, active client CRM. We looked at our client CRM, and if they didn't exist, which John Smith does not exist, it's going to create somebody in the CRM. So we now have somebody named John Smith in active client CRM. And in onboarding, we now created a list for John Smith onboarding. So now what we're doing is creating tasks within the list John Smith onboarding. So those tasks are all going to go here. And those are all things that we have to do within his onboarding to get him onboarded properly. So for the list name or ID, we want to take the ID from the list that we just created. So it's going to be near the top there. Just map that in. And then the name of the task is just going to be get meta logins. So that's the first thing. Say we're onboarding somebody. Change the name to meta logins. And then maybe we want to duplicate that and add a new task for us to go in and Google logins. So now we're going to create a task called Google logins, and we're just going to grab the name of that task in here. Get Google logins. You can create as many tasks as you need. I'm not going to go in and create too many. I'll do one more, maybe for let's do ClickMagick setup, which is just an attribution software. But say we're doing ClickMagick setup. So then you change the name of the task to ClickMagick setup. And say we want to add due dates. We could add due dates. Say you wanted to add custom fields, assignees. You can assign a bunch of different things here. I'm not going to do all of these right now, but you would just click due date, and then you would just select the due date for the task. You actually can map this. So if you want to do a due date, you can map a due date to maybe 3 days after the first execution. So let's go back to the webhook, and maybe we want to say this will execute right away. So the due date is going to be, so we have an expression we can use to go 3 days from now, which would be probably when this is due. So now you can see if I were to go add a due date, now ClickMagick setup, if I execute that, it's going to do it within the list. If I go back to ClickUp over here, you can see I have ClickMagick setup, and it's due today's Saturday, so it has a due date of Monday. You could add assignees, you could add priorities. All those things can be done right within n8n. just how I showed you with these additional fields down here. So that's pretty much it. You can go out, build this out more. You can add Frame.io integrations. If you are doing Frame, the way I would do it, so creating like a project folder in Frame, I would merge all of these ClickUp nodes. Just actually, you don't really have to merge it, but you're going to want to send an HTTP request. And what I would personally do, just because it's a lot easier, is send an HTTP request over to make.com. So you would send the HTTP over to Make, and in Make, it's a lot easier to integrate with Frame because they already have all the OAuth and the permissions in there. So I would send an HTTP request to a Make webhook and then kick that off. So I guess we are using Zapier, n8n and Make, which is messy, but it is the easiest way to do this. So what we have here in this automation, you're getting a payment from Fanbasis. It's going to get clients in ClickUp, so your current client base. If that client doesn't exist, they're going to go through this onboarding process. If they do exist, you're just going to get a new payment message. You could also throw a new payment message somewhere in here just because they still paid, so you probably want to get that message either way. But then you're going to create an onboarding list, creating a new client, and creating all the tasks that need to be done for that client so that you're not missing anything, you're not late, and you can get clients onboarded very seamlessly. If you want the free JSON template for exactly what I built here, just click the first link in the description. It's in my school community. It is 100% free, so you can download it there.